Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Yeah. I mean, I've lost.
Good morning, Austin. Good morning, Austin. Good to see so many faces today. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Board of Commissioners in Polk County. Today is July 26th. All commissioners are present. Just so you know, there are extra agendas and materials on the back table there if you'd like. We're going to start with comments for anybody from the public to speak on anything not on the agenda, but given the full agenda, if anybody has any comments on what is on the agenda, please feel free to come forward now. Going once. All right, twice. Next up, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Also move. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes from July 19th?
So moved. I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
Also move with the, I'd just like to recognize our new county clerk.
We haven't done that yet.
We haven't done that
It's
yet.
a separated.
That's a
not on the
separate-
consent.
Then I'll
What is
just,
on consent?
I'll motion to move. Yes.
Is it on consent?
Is it on consent?
No, it's.
Oh, no, it's
action
next
item.
up.
That's
Never
what I
mind.
thought.
Yeah, I'm getting.
We know what we're doing here.
Motion to approve the consent calendar?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll simplify.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, Commissioner Moorhurst is Polk County Clerk appointment and subsequent order number 23-10. We had a chance to meet with Kim yesterday at our meeting, had a very substantive and detailed conversation. It was wonderful. Mr. Hanson, please take it away.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm recommending that the board approve order 2310, appointing Kim Williams as the new county clerk for Polk County. The basis for this appointment is our longtime clerk, Val Unger, who has served 32 plus years with the county and over 20 years as the county clerk, is retiring effective September 30th of this year. And as a result, the process is that the Board of Commissioners appoints the new county clerk. There's many ways in which you can do that appointment in that. However, in this case, I believe it's important and valuable to have a direct appointment from the office. Kim is more than willing and more than experienced to take over those duties. The effective date of the appointment will be October 1st, after Val's last day as officially the Polk County clerk. Their office is very small, so everyone up there gets cross-trained in everything that they do up there, both recording and elections. Kim has been with us a long time and she will do a fine job as succeeding Val Unger as the county clerk for Polk County.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or discussion before we consider a motion? I just want to note that Ms. Unger would be here today. However, there is somebody out of the office on vacation and she needs to keep the office running. So
On that note, I'd like to make the motion that we appoint Kim Williams as our new county clerk under order number 2310.
Second.
since been made and seconded, any further discussion? Again, thank you, Kim, for stepping up in this critical.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to go back to the office and help out.
Well, they haven't voted yet. So fast.
I'll wait for that part.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Kim.
That was a
You're free to get back to your duties.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
Easy part's over.
She's welcome to stay. I don't know why she's leaving. Okay, next up, we have a couple of ODOT presentations. We're gonna start with Highway 18. Brennan is here with us. I understand Ann is not.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
She had another conflict and she apologizes for not being able to be here.
Thanks, Brennan. If you wouldn't mind just stating your name and employer for the record.
Sure. I'm Brennan Burbank and I work for the Oregon Department of Transportation. We can sit up.
Still a Polk County resident?
I am.
Excellent.
Yes. Yeah. And I actually just moved this weekend, so still within Polk County.
Smart man.
Thank you very much for letting me take the time to do this presentation and give you an update on the project. A couple people I want to thank before I dive into it. One, Commissioner Mordhorst for being a part of this project and being really involved. I think it really helps with the synergy between the county and ODOT as we're working through the project. And then also Todd and Austin from your team. They've been heavily involved. And then people who aren't here would be John Mercier from the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and then the Federal Highway Administration, and then also Anna Henson, who's my boss, who's been very active in the project. This is a quick update on the OR 18 project. You'll feel free to jump in if you have any questions, or if you'd prefer, you can wait until the end, whatever your preference is. But I want to give you a quick update on some of the background, some of the concept development, some public outreach that we've done to date, and then also some next steps on the project. So jumping into background, this project started with an environmental assessment back in 2002. It was for the corridor in and around the casino. And then a couple of years later, we did a revised environmental assessment. And then starting in 2018, the project was funded through a grant with $4.5 million to do a facility plan, and then starting to do preliminary engineering. And the project itself was really focused in on the Valley Junction and kind of surrounding area, for context. And then also part of this, with this project, we have Jacobs on board as a consultant to help with the facility plan and doing the design work and helping with the concept plans. So first off, why are we doing this project? And from your perspective, you probably know more than myself from conversations with citizens and just in conversations and personal experience. But really, this area is really congested. You've got a prime employer with the casino. You also have events there. You have a large community that's going through there, and you also have a lot of traffic that's going from here to the coast. And that's created a lot of congestion at and around the Valley Junction, predominantly, trying to get in and out of 22 off of 18 has been a really troublesome time. And I'll show you some images later around crashes and some of those things as well. A couple other things of note of why we're here is also around the unsafe speeds. You're going from 2 lanes and necking down into 1 lane. And so you create this the spot where everybody's trying to speed ahead. So those are some of the reasons why we considered this, and as the county, as the applicant for the project, was originally interested in the project. So here's an image of the crash data from 2015 to 2019. Starting with the Valley Junction itself, you can see that there's a large area where there's a lot of crashes and high volume there. And then the red indicates a high volume to capacity ratio, which essentially means that there's a lot of congestion in that area frequently. And so those are 2 of the primary areas that we're looking at from a crash perspective, and we're trying to help solve. This right here, the words themselves aren't as important, but it's an image showing some of the public feedback that we've received in the area. And this just goes to show that in this area, there's a lot of issues that we're trying to resolve. And we're not going to be able to resolve all of them, but anytime we get this feedback, it's a really important part of the process. And we implement some of those comments in and see if we can resolve them with both the facility plan and our design. So now that we know the why, the first step in developing anything with FHWA from an environmental perspective is developing a purpose and need statement. And for this project, we focused in on enhancing safety, reducing congestion, and improving mobility at and around the Valley Junction. Once the team developed this, and for clarity, the team included Commissioner Mordhorst, a couple other people from the county, John Mercier from Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, so a couple ODOT staff members, as well as FHWA. So it was a partnership in developing the statement. So once we develop the purpose and need statement, then we transition into what are the goals for the project. And we narrowed it down to 6 different goals that you can see here. And once we identified those goals, we had, well, I'll call them sub-objectives that we developed for each one of those. So for instance, on safety, we could have an objective of reducing crashes by so much. And so at the end of the day, we had probably 25 to 35 different objectives. And all of those objectives we use to develop a scoring matrix to help us when we're developing some of the alignments so that we can objectively look at each of those alignments compared to our purpose and need and our goals. Here, this image is showing some of the major focus areas on the north side in the green lettering. On 22, we're looking at realigning right around Kissing Rock. What we've heard from the county and from some of the citizens is trucks don't want to use 22 because Grand Ronde Road is much easier for them to utilize. And part of that is on the north side, there's the 90-degree corner, and then through Kissing Rock, it's really tough for trucks to get through there. And then on the north east and west side of Valley Junction, we're planning on widening both the highway and the bridges through there so that we have more capacity. And then at Valley Junction, we're planning on constructing an interchange with the current concept. So concept development. So after we've created the goals and gone through that process, this here is the process for doing a facility plan. And essentially, you start out at a system-wide level and you're looking at how do we get people from one location to another? You're not looking at details as far as which properties you're going through or where you're widening. And then as you go through the process, you continue to narrow down and start looking at individual properties. At this point in the process, we're not specifically looking at accesses for individual properties, but that will be something that we're looking at through the process. So once we've developed all that, we started looking at initial concepts, and the team essentially had the map and said, "Hey, what are some options?" Nothing's off the table, and we came up with between 19 and 23 different options that we thought may be feasible. And then, as you can see here, in the next slide here. Each one of those options we kind of categorized into 4 different concept types. One was really around connecting to the Fort Hill interchange, one around focusing in on the current casino interchange and enhancing that. The third one in red was around the Valley Junction interchange, and the final one was around the Grand Ronde Road interchange or potential interchange there. So once we had those 4 primary, I'll call them colors or different concepts, we took each one of those and then put them through the scoring matrix. And at the end of the day, the red concept or the Valley Junction interchange concept was the highest scoring. And these are just some of the high level scores that we went through. And if you have questions on specific rankings, I can pull that data up at a later time and provide that to you. And so right now we're looking at, this is the preferred concept for the project right now. I'll show here in a few minutes. We've got a few more things to work through, but the primary things that we're doing, as I mentioned, straightening out the curves on 22, widening 18, to get more traffic through there. And then we're also building frontage roads. Oh, and I'll use my mouse here. Some frontage roads that here will be on the existing 18 alignment. And then we also have a frontage road here to connect up the residents, making sure that they have access to the system. And then the connection down here to Rowell Creek Road as well. Outreach. So outreach is a really important part of the process. When we sat down and we started the project, we knew that public outreach was going to be key to getting the right project to solve our problem. Because as you could see in that the 19 to 23 different concepts, there's lots of different options that we had. And so we wanted to get that feedback from the community and people who are actually going to be using the facility long term. And so here a list of just some of the outreach that we did. But most importantly, we started with the steering committee, which had a lot of the major stakeholders. So ODOT, county, tribe involved in that process, but also reaching out to individuals who may be affected. So we met on site with a lot of people, you're talking about, hey, with this concept, this is how it's going to affect your property. And then they were able to give us feedback of, oh, well, what if you did this instead of that? And in actually one case, we originally were going to go on the front side of their property, and then we were able to move the frontage road on the back side because that had a reduced effect on their property and the way that they use their property. So that's a really important part of that process for us. So next steps. Right now, we're finishing out the facility plan. It's about 95% complete. We have two focus areas that we need to finish up from a steering committee perspective. We're going to be doing a couple more what we call homework activities where we're going to come up with some different concepts and then work through those from an engineering perspective to see which alternative is the best. Those two specific locations are the frontage road here on the left-hand side. We want to make sure that when we're developing the facility plan, and this is credit to Austin, when we're developing the facility plan, we don't want to preclude the connection between the frontage road and Grand Ron Road that the county may want to connect at a future time. And so we're trying to get that into the facility plan. The second one is around the southeast interchange area here. And Commissioner Mordhorst, he's really emphasized that truck traffic getting through here is really important, which the project team, we understand that, but it's really important that he continues to tell us that. And then we're going to relook at that to make sure that we've got the right design so that the truck traffic can get through there smoothly.
Just to take that step farther. When we rebuilt Grand Ron Road, what year was that? 2008? Somewhere around there? We built Grand Road to city standards. Once we built the road, it was so much easier for the truck traffic to go down Grand Ron Road rather than go down 22 to 18 interchange, and then they couldn't get out. So the traffic just totally annihilated that Grand Ron Road. We're out there currently this year rebuilding it again. If we didn't have enough landfill in it or rock underneath it to support that kind of weight. So at the same time, there was a 8-year-old girl, I believe, ran hit by a log truck out there on Grand Run Road because all that traffic ran through the community. So one of the big keys of this is getting the truck traffic out of Grand Ron and making it easier for that east-west connection. So one of the options of this interchange is as the trucks will come down 22, we'll address the Kissing Rock and the sharp corners, but more importantly, when they hit the interchange, they will come over the interchange and have a free left turn and then blend right onto 18 coming east. So it will really encourage them and will eliminate that traffic inside the community. So it's a great plan.
Yeah, and we can't control what they do, but we want to make it easier for them to use the interchange as opposed to Grand Ron Road. And so that's part of what we're looking at from a concept design.
Just curious, what are some of the adjustments you made to the interchange to make it easier?
So, as Commissioner Mortenhorst was talking about, we're looking at having it so it's a free flow left-hand turn so that they don't have to stop. Or other alternatives may be that they have to stop, but it's easier for them to get going. And then as opposed to currently on Grand Run Road where there's a stop sign and then they have to turn at that point.
Just curious if there was additional.
Yeah, and then also the capacity, meaning, the ramps, there's a lot of capacity there so that they're not sitting out in traffic as well.
If there's a wreck at the interchange, it's just the entire traffic flow down. There was a fatality at one time. We just happened to be caught out at Lincoln City. It was 4 hours to get from Otis to that interchange. So there's no way around it at that one spot.
Yeah, and to that point, one thing that was really important is redundancy in the system, and how we've developed this concept currently is if there's a crash in this area here, this frontage road will connect up to the Fort Hill interchange. And so traffic will be able to continue to flow, granted slower, but there would be a way around it. And so that was one of the considerations when we were looking at different alternatives. So these are, this here is the schedule that we're looking at into the future. And really we're finishing up the facility plan, doing another online open house, doing a little bit more public outreach. And then at that point, we'll be working with Austin to go through the county process. And, part of it is we wanted to make sure that that you are aware of the project and up to speed so that we can handle any, comments that we have from the public. So it reduces any sort of conversation once it gets, into your process. So. And then as far as, the last piece of this is this project, because of how big it is, we're looking at phases. There's predominantly 4 different phases. Kissing Rock is the smallest phase. And so we're looking for grants and then trying to push that forward. Both Jim West and Anna Henson. So my boss and my boss's boss have committed to looking for grant opportunities to both continue the design and looking for construction funding to get that moving forward. And once you start moving that forward or big projects like this, it becomes a lot easier to fund because FHWA looks at that as, oh, they're making meaningful progress on the project. And then from a grant perspective, it's more competitive. And at that point, any questions for me?
Yep. So how many more bridges are in this new plan?
So we have, I'll have to get back to you on the exact number. We're retrofitting most of them. And then one of the concepts has it so that we're just widening a couple of the bridges, but we're looking at, and I'm visually thinking through it. We've got one over the interchange itself, and then it's in the range of 3 to 4.
New bridges.
New bridges, yes. Yeah, that will be owned and operated by ODOT.
Mm-hmm. But I'm asking that question for the public because
Yeah.
those bridges escalate the cost significantly.
Sure, yes. And that was part of the alternatives analysis, and the analysis that we've done is one of the cheaper options from a bridge perspective.
And my argument always was, and again, I started in this project.
Yeah.
So my argument has always been looking for the alternative routes that are already there, that avoid you having to have more NEPA challenges and bridge crossings. And
Sure.
So this is all new, and we're not using any existing routes that are there. I mean, essentially building all new pathways and significantly changing 22, which I concur with. But it all adds a lot of cost and a lot of time. Do you have any sense at this point in the study work of the estimated cost of this project?
So for all the phases, we're looking at approximately 200 million. So it's not a small project.
Wow.
Yeah.
For the record.
Yeah.
Wow. I will tell you that number has skyrocketed since I started in this project.
Yeah.
Nobody's fault. It is what it is. And then all phases, estimated delivery date.
Right now, we don't have construction funding, and so at this point, we don't have
So there's a decade gone.
it could be,
Potentially.
yes.
Again, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to be
Yeah.
honest with the public
So,
that are watching this.
Oh, yeah.
That's how long this takes. This
Yeah.
is a legacy project.
Yeah.
It will continue to be a legacy project until we convince somebody, in FHWA that it's our turn to
right,
get this money, right?
right. And from a scheduling perspective, if we receive the funding today for Kissing Rock, it would take approximately 2.5 years to do the design work, and then an additional at least year to purchase the right of way. And so, it'd take 3.5 years before we have boots on the ground if we receive the funding today.
So that's an optimistic estimate just to get the planning work done.
Well, that would be
Construction.
to construction.
I said planning work. That's what that means.
Yes.
Let's don't confuse our words here. Construction means actually digging something. That's not what this is. So I'm just trying to make certain
Yeah.
that we're setting a reality for people, for the public to understand that this isn't something that's happening in 3 years.
Right.
It's still a long way out and with potential plans because of public input going forward. But I just want to make sure that we got those pieces in there just for a reality check.
Yeah.
And then do we have agreement with the tribe so far?
Yeah, they have been on board. Commissioner, I'd say that 100% through the process. And we're going to be giving a similar presentation to the tribe here in the next month and a half. But conversations we've had with John, they've been on board through the whole process.
But again, just to make sure I understand this, I look at in our next steps or in our timeline, there's a process right here in county, the Board of Commissioners and Plan Commission, Board of Commissioners, et cetera.
Right.
They probably have the same thing at tribal council.
My understanding is it's a pretty truncated process. And so I think the county process is a lot longer than what the tribe's process is my understanding.
But again, just to be fair, I'm confident that the tribal council has a process
Oh, yes.
of approval and concurrence. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the questions.
Kind of a add-on question to the future funding, construction funding. So I appreciate that your superiors have committed to prioritizing this and going out for funding for all 4 phases. Is this memorialized in any way in ODOT documents, Oregon Transportation Plan, or anything? Obviously, within the plan,
right.
It'll say we're going to go after XYZ grants, but beyond that, ODOT wide, how do we make sure this is memorialized as a priority?
Right. To my understanding, it's not memorialized in writing, beyond emails and, exchanges with Commissioner Mordhorse and Anna and Jim West. That's something that maybe I'll work with Commissioner Mordhorse to see what options we have to get that in writing that this is a priority from a funding perspective.
I think that'd be really important, given the reasonable timeline that we're talking about. Obviously, certain actors and certain organizations move on and do different things, and
Sure.
it's a pretty heavy lift for future commissioners and future folks at ODOT. For continuity's sake. So any option there would be very, very welcome.
Yeah, and I can't guarantee that, but I'll talk with Anna and then work with Commissioner Mordhorse to see what options we've got.
Appreciate it, Brendan.
Yeah.
I just want to publicly thank again Commissioner Mordhorse for his leadership representing the county and the people in Polk County, and Austin, your work, and Todd, he's here too. Great job, great teamwork.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much for your time. And if you think of anything afterwards, feel free to give me a call or send me an email.
Thank you, Brian. Great job.
Hey, continuing with this theme, Kumar, please join us. The Highway 22 and 51 interchange. Could both please state your name and role in this project for the record.
Yep. My name is Kumar Rathnasamy. I'm the project manager with ODOT. And along with me, I have Ed Chamberlain with DEA. They're our consultant partner who's working on the project.
Thank you.
So the purpose of today's meeting is to give you guys an overview of the project, where we're at, why we're doing the project, our recent design work, some of the public involvement that we've done recently, some of the conversations we've had with business owners, landholders, and just, I guess, general education about the project, but also education about the layout, how it looks, because there's a lot of lines on pages. I provided this layout here. That's because some of the stuff doesn't really present well on presentation screen, but on a piece of paper, I can point to you guys to look at certain things. So, in terms of purpose of the project, I guess this is slightly different from Brennan's project, where the facility planning is already completed on this project. The Highway 22 or Oregon 22 Expressway Management Plan completed in 2010. Our work is really to move forward from the facility plan and to bring life to a project. So looking at, I guess there's, again, similarities with Brennan's project where congestion is not really an issue in this project, but crashes and mobility are the real main focus of this project. As you can see on the screen there, between 2016 and 2020, we've had a lot of crashes at this location. Even over the last recent months, there's been quite a few severe accidents or crashes at this location. Some of the issues that are facing people using this corridor are businesses, people trying to turn left into the different businesses, people trying to turn right into the different local access or local roads. And so there's just I guess a conflict of traffic movements, people coming up from Independence Highway, accelerating, slowing down to going to gas station and businesses. So you've just got all these different movements, which doesn't make it very safe for people to use this road. And so what the purpose of this project is to address those issues. And when we share the design, we'll show you how it addresses those issues. In orange, I've shown the project limits. So the reason we're looking at this particular corridor is because this is where we have found, this is the places where we've found the highest accident history and where our project would be the greatest benefit to the public. So again, Brennan's project has a lot of similarities to this one. We're not funded for construction, and so we're still a very long way out. But what we're doing is working out those details, again, to bring forth life to a project, work out what its cost is, work out how we're going to phase the project, completing the environmental research. What the facility plan did was a very high level look at some of those environmental resources, so things like historical properties, archaeological properties, wetlands, rivers, biology. So there's all these different factors which go into a project, and what the facility plan is to just capture a high level look at that. What it doesn't look at is how it looks at these things in details. So within the facility plan, there was a whole bunch of options that were created, and they try to avoid some of those things. But the process that we're doing now is to look at those things in depth and to really understand and put together a layout which addresses those issues. And again, there's a little timeline showing of where we're at. We're at 2023. So we're doing the planning and design work at the moment and the environmental research. That's what we're funded for. And then beyond that, we're not funded for right of way or construction. And so the purpose of what we're doing is to get to a number, get to a phasing plan, and then move forward eventually to find funding, similar grant funding, to move it forward into construction. So in your outline, there's a couple of different options, and this project on the second page of the I guess the handout. We're looking at putting in a number of access roads to the north of Highway 22 and access roads to the south of Highway 22. That's to eliminate the left turning traffic movement, or at least to address getting people across the highway and routing them through the interchange itself. There was two different types of interchange options that we are looking at, and that's the interchange at Highway 22 and Highway 51. And so an interchange meaning there would be a bridge going over the top of Highway 22. And that would be how those access roads would connect up, and people would get in and around. And so we have two different types of interchanges. One was like a dog bone. A dog bone is essentially a diamond interchange, or very, I guess, a standard interchange, something you'd see off like I-5, where you've got two roads kind of connecting up to a bridge and then going through. The difference between a diamond interchange and with a dog bone is it uses roundabouts as opposed to stop control or traffic lights to route people through that. And there's two types of dog bones, or at least roundabout interchanges. One's called a dog bone and one's a dumbbell. A dumbbell has two roundabouts which kind of circulate independently, and a dog bone is like a single roundabout. So essentially, to make that move, you connect from the south, go around the bridge, and then back up through the north. So that's what slight differences between the, I guess, the terminology. The other interchange option was the northwest loop, and that's very similar to what you guys probably experience at Rick Riol interchange. Basically a loop ramp which goes underneath the bridge at Highway 22 at Rick Riol and then loops back up over. So they're the two interchange options that we're looking at. We had 4 interchange options that we looked at. One was a dual loop version, which had loops on the northeast side and the northwest side. We also looked at a northeast loop, and they were ruled out for various reasons because of cost, impacts to property, impacts to streams, bridges. So the two loops, or I guess the two interchange types that we're advancing forward and looking at now, are the dog bone and the northwest loop. Accompanying that is, again, if you're looking at page 2 of the handout, is access roads on all 4 quadrants. One on the northwest quadrant of OR22 or Highway 22 and Independence Highway, one on the eastern end, which encompasses Doakes Ferry Road, 55th and 50th Avenue, one on the southeast quadrant, which is it's got the RV park, a lot of the businesses, Aspinwalls, Blueberry Orchard, Chevron Station, and then the southwest quadrant, which is South Oak Grove Road and some of the properties that exist out there. Okay. Again, this is the same picture that you'll see on page 2 of your handout, and that's just to give you an idea of the extent and scale of the project. Those 2 options that we talked about, the dog bone and the northwest loop, all have similar, I guess, project. It's, I mean, in terms of the extent, they're all similar, but how they vary is at the interchanges themselves. So if you're looking, I guess, west of 52nd Avenue or east of 52nd Avenue, the layouts for the southern, so that northeast access road is primarily a backage road which runs along, connects up to Doakes Ferry, goes through 2nd Avenue, or what is proposed as 2nd Avenue, past Riggs Avenue, through 55th, and then when it gets to 52nd, or not 55th, 50th, when it gets to 52nd, that's when it varies for the different options, and they're shown on the different pages. Similarly, on the south side, from, I guess, the Yola Inn going out to the Chevron stations. That is a primary frontage road, and that basically remains the same. The access on the north, or I guess we can talk a little bit more about accesses as we move through it, but maybe Ed, do you want to cover a little bit about the access on the north side and then also on the south side?
Around the interchange.
I think cover around Dokes Ferry Road and then 50th, and then also where the way station is.
Okay, so on the very east end at the Dokes Ferry intersection there's some modifications proposed to accommodate volumes as we go into the future. And that Dokes Ferry primary route will be along the new frontage road, or I should say the new backage road. The connection to the highway will be retained in the right out movement, you know, sort of an exit from the westbound direction. And that would be the only movement there for a vehicle. The right out, I should say a right in. So the right out going to the west would be disconnected there for safety reasons, as well as the left in would be precluded due to the median barrier that would be placed. Going towards the west, there's a connection proposed at 50th Avenue, which is sort of the long-term solution that was previously located at Riggs. And so the Riggs connection in the long term moves down to 50th. And that's what we're showing here. At this time, it's an exit from the highway in the westbound direction. So we would show that as the right out. And then the right in at this time is precluded, is shown as precluded in this drawing due to its proximity to the interchange ramps at Oregon 51. On the south side, there's a way station that ODOT has in the eastbound direction, and it's generally not compatible with our frontage road system here. And so ODOT has essentially committed to relocate that way station to the west, several miles outside the project limits. And there are some very, very preliminary locations that have been looked at for that, but that would be one of the actions of the project. So, want me to keep going on the interchange area, or you want to?
Let's have a look, see what our next slide is. Yeah, so quickly, as I was talking about the two interchange types, you've got dog bone. But you know, you've got a multi-use path on the north side, which will continue on. And that's the general layout. What we've done with the dog bone, and it's slightly different to the alignment of Highway 22 at the moment, is that it's moved further south. And the reason that we're moving it further south is because Brunkhouse is considered a historic property. And its historic boundary extends further outside its tax lot, which puts it, I guess, into special territory where we have to avoid impacting it because of its relationship with the highway and how people historically used it as a rest point in the past. Part of the work of the project will be to preserve that function. Either we'll have a driveway which comes in at the front of the Brunkhouse to maintain that connection and relationship to Highway 22, or we'll use the multi-use path, or maybe have a driveway which comes in at the back. So that's kind of yet to be determined, but as part of the research, we know we have to move the highway south to avoid that resource. There are some other resources shown up on this map, such as wetlands, floodplain to the south, which is in the kind of aqua color, and some of the access roads will show that. Again, Northwest Loop, again, if you're familiar with the Rick Rail interchange, this is kind of similar, goes through that, you know, that same type of pattern. I guess the only difference is the roundabouts, which can sometimes throw people off. Yeah, do you want to go through some of the options?
So on the north side, access road option 1 is kind of what we call the outer loop. the Backage Road coming from the Dokes Ferry area, right around 52nd, proceeds north, lines up with 53rd, and then connects to Astor Street there, making the connection to 55th and the interchange. On the west side, there's a road that's proposed kind of on the north end of the hazelnut orchard that connects over to North Oak Grove Road, and then, of course, the small frontage road out to the golf course. So we call that whole system kind of the outer option. And that's the essence of that one. So next slide. This is kind of a simple cross section of what that might look like. And right now we're showing geometry that could be either an ODOT facility or a county road. So it might be a little bigger or a little different depending upon that final decision. But we're trying to keep our options open. We're just at a planning level. So we're kind of just showing maybe something a little bigger than normal, but could go either way.
And that access road, I guess that cross section applies to both the south side and the north side. So it's just, I guess, a typical section.
Yeah, kind of in a rural area.
It's total distance on that access option, that outer access option we're talking about here, do you know?
What's the distance
Yeah,
from?
well, I suppose from like 52nd to where Oak Grove would meet 22.
What is that? Maybe half a mile,
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
maybe less. Okay, so this one, option 2, we consider this the inner option. It's just a little closer to the interchange. The Backage Road from Dokes Ferry, as you see right there around 52nd, instead of going north, it actually sort of proceeds closer to the highway and follows the highway alignment there, crosses McNary Creek, and then sort of swoops up and connects to 55th, sort of a minimum distance away from the interchange. And then pairing up with that to the west is a access road that kind of cuts through the middle of the hazelnut orchard and connects to the west, very similar to the other one. South side, option 3 is the inner option, coming from the east, the frontage road there along the Chevron station. The road continues and sort of hugs the proposed highway ramp and interchange, and it tees up, or it connects up straight across from a new alignment at the south end of South Oak Grove Road, which sort of crosses kind of just north of the pond that's out there today. And that west extension connects up to those residential and farming, small farming properties there to the west of the interchange. We can come back to that in a little bit. That's let me cover this one real quick. This is the outer option, option 4. Very similar from the east coming to the Chevron station, but then instead of hugging the interchange, it sort of cuts down south across the field, and it lines up across from the existing intersection with South Oak Grove Road. And then, of course, to the west there, it just follows the South Oak Grove Road alignment and then connects to the properties. So that contrasts with option 3. This is a cross section that just shows kind of the existing highway, 2 lanes each way. On the right side, we have the frontage road on the south, which shows shoulders and then a sidewalk in limited areas, such as kind of near the fruit stand area or wherever is sort of judged to be the center of the area. On the left side, you see the multi-use path, which is now proposed to be protected by barrier and slightly widened a little bit.
So what's shown up here is how those two kind of interchange options and how they vary. Well, you've got the dog bone and how the outer loops and how the inner loops work with that. You can see, I guess, on the left-hand picture, the dog bone kind of kicks out into the filbert orchard. I think it's 55th kind of comes out and cuts into a little bit of some people's property out there. And the reason that is because we need to, for our access standards, we need to be a certain amount I guess, a certain distance away from the interchange. And the reason that we do that is to protect the interchange itself from, I guess, from future development. So, you know, if we go in and build this interchange, you know, in say 10 years time, if something changes or some sort of development use changes, the interchange, you know, won't stop functioning to work. So it's all about the reason that we have access standards and why, you know, why we have to kind of kick out and go up north is so we can protect that facility. It's all part of what we're tasked with from FHWA and creating, I guess, longevity with our projects, not for building a project for, you know, that serves for 3 or 4 years and does really well and then fails after that. So, and then on the other side, you've got the outer loop option. And again, that uses existing county roads. And again, the alignment of 50th, 55th kind of follows that kind of closely. So they're kind of the differences between that. To the south, again, like Ed was explaining, it's not too much changes there other than the way in which it goes, I guess, south and north, but one cuts through a blueberry field and the other one cuts through a wetland. So, and again, the northwest loop, you'll see again how those two options relate to there. Again, very similarly, the alignments the alignments are pretty much exactly the same of how the interchange is in relationship to 22. It's just how those access roads connect up and the properties that they impact. So we've done a little bit of public involvement over this last month. We've currently got an online open house, which is available to the public for people to comment on. We have this little fancy GIS map where people can go and mark in the comments in specific areas and send that out to the project team. Not last Wednesday, the Wednesday before, we had a in-person open house at Polk County Fairgrounds. And we had, I think it was around 175 people attend. That was people who had signed their names. So it's probably close to maybe 225 to 250 people. We had our consultant team, our ODOT team was there, answering questions from the public. That was really useful for our team to get a handle on what people were interested in, help educate the public about the project. Just from the people who filled out the comment card, we had about, I think, 97 different respondents. So I think 60 comment cards from the in-person and 30 from the online. The inner loops are mostly preferred. And when it comes to the interchange itself, there's a little bit of, it's like a 2/3 split between the dog bone and the northwest loop. Some of the themes that are coming across in people's feedback is roundabouts. You know, it's I guess controversial. It's not new to anyone. So people are hesitant about that. Also, people are worried about the businesses and the drive-by traffic that some of the businesses receive. And then also the multi-use path being used for unintended purposes. That came as a bit of a surprise, but I think by widening and making that facility more attractive, some people are worried about transient populations moving out this way. So that's what some of the feedback that we're getting about the project so far. So give you an idea of what we're moving or working on the next kind of 6 months to a year. So we're going to review the outreach efforts that we've undertaken, incorporate some of the feedback into our project design, completing that environmental research, analyzing whether we're going to move, either one interchange or two interchanges forward. Currently, as we've shown, there was like 60% provide, 66% of people like the dog bone, 33% like the northwest loop. But there's also some access road refinements, through some of the feedback that we're getting that might change that feedback. So we're looking to analyze that a little bit further and see how that design can change. Put together a cost estimate, which will help us determine, how much money we need, but also the phasing to see, which parts can we do at certain points in time. And then one of the more interesting steps is we kind of take a step back and we do what's called a value engineering study. So that's where we hand the project off to an independent design team. They take a look at it and really, unpack it to see if there's anything that we've overlooked as a design team, but also to dot the I's and cross the T's to check our work and see if there's ways that they could design things more efficiently. And then our second phase of work will be to go from to complete the NEPA phase and then go from essentially the work we're doing is project initiation, which is to lay out what the project looks like. Going to DAP would then be looking at this design work and then basically fleshing it all out. So that's my name and number and email. If you have any questions, the QR code takes you to the project webpage. So happy to take some questions.
How much money is left in the key account to continue to do the work?
The design, we have spent about $3.5 million. We still have about $5 million left.
Yeah.
Will there be a evaluation criteria matrix like we saw with the previous presentation at some point, or does that already exist?
Yeah, we've got an evaluation criteria which looks at these things and scores them. We just didn't present it today, but yeah, we're going through that evaluation process.
Looking at those different options I'd like to see that,
Yeah.
cost, impacts, safety, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out just a couple things. Mark, if you could pull up the inner loop and the outer loop options on the interchanges. I just want to point some consistency here so people can understand the impact. So on the northwest quadrant, so the upper right corner, that's the interchange or the inner connection. And you show us the outer one as well. So the outer one turns and follows up 55th and goes past the theater and goes all the way up to Astor and comes back around, and then we'll connect down. That's a huge impact on that community, and a lot of homes and families live up there. Well, now if we go back to the interchange or the inner loop, now it compacts that down and we don't impact all of those people. And the only area we have wetlands is consistent with where the interchange is going to be placed also, right there at the base of the hill at the corner of 55th and 22nd. So that tightens that down and reduces that footprint and that impact to that area. And we've looked at that all the way through. On the northwest corner, you see option 2, northwest 2. That one right there, the inner loop cuts right through the middle of that orchard, where the owner says that's going to make his harvest very hard because they make solid runs to the loaders and stuff. So if we go back to the outer loop now, Umar, the outer loop follows the property line between the orchard and the vineyard. So we're going to have minimal impacts on both property owners. And the nice thing about this is we can pick and choose each corner that we want and how the layout is for the final design of this interchange. So that's the 2 north ones. So now if we can look at the south ones. So that there's the inner loop. So that again reduces the footprint of the project. Both of them on the southeast corner follows close to the highway, and it comes down South Grove Road. But this one cuts in a little and moves that intersection or tie into 51 a little farther north. And right below that, there is a pond, a wetlands area there. This will take out one home. The lady is totally good with being bought out. She does want to live in the middle of all the intersection and all the traffic. So this way it'll kind of get her out of there and she can move to a little quieter region. On the southeast side, where on the inner, well, so right there you can see now that also comes up and how it's close to the roadway, and again reduces the footprint and the amount of impacts we have on the farmers in that area there. So it all pulls on in nice and tight produce that. So if we go to the outer on the south now. So the outer one, this will go around the south end of that pond, but still can't touch wetlands. On the southeast corner, so the bottom right hand, this cuts directly through a blueberry field. It's all wetlands, all the way across the lower section until they hit the railroad, then go up and again, we cut another farmer's field up. Where if we go to the inner loop, we don't have those impacts. So that's all of those things I hope you all comment on as we look through this. The open air fairgrounds, this was laid out with 4 maps. So you can walk through and see all the differences. It is confusing, and here it's so much easier because we can just pop right through them and we can all discuss them.
Yeah, something to notice what the commissioner was saying with the northern access roads, they can kind of chop and change. With the southern ones, they can't be as much just because of the traffic on Independence Highway. So they kind of have to be coming at 90 degrees to each other, just because if you have what's called an offset intersection, that creates additional traffic safety issues. So with the southern options, they kind of have to tee together. So these ones kind of work independently, or they work as they're shown, whereas the northern ones can be chopped and changed.
Great point. Thank you. Any other questions?
What you described well makes sense to me too, that impact on existing properties and keeping it tight. What is the advantage of a wider berth of a loop? Is it just traffic flow?
Well, it's, I guess sometimes cost efficiencies using existing facilities to, to make use of what's existing in the area. As you see, a lot of the project, or at least the frontage and backage roads, which go east and west, they're all new roads. So it's really hard to, it's all additional costs. There's locations where we thought we could use existing stuff and maybe lessen the impact to the public, but it has also unintended consequences by routing additional traffic through communities, especially on that northeast section. It's quite steep up through there, so it's got its own, even though we're using existing roads, it's got its own engineering challenges where roads would have to be widened out, bridges would have to be upgraded. So sometimes creating a new road results in a better project and has less impacts on more people. So.
I want to commend you too and your teams. You've met with a lot of people one-on-one, you've listened to them, and you've made a lot of changes and considerations in your design. So thank you for that and good presentation.
Yeah, thanks for your work, Commissioner. I think having you and Lyle and Austin, Todd and Austin on the team has made a big difference in moving the project forward. So I'd like to recognize your work in moving this project forward, because without it, I don't think we'd have the voice or the standing, and especially with meeting with the residents. And, there's a lot of impacts to people who live there, and sharing that news with people, it's challenging, but having the county there really makes like we're true partners in the project, and we're not just saying, this is what we need to do. We're really trying to make a difference here and save lives.
Thanks. You guys want to pause for a second just to see if there's anybody in the room who would like to ask any questions of our presenters before we dismiss them? Yes, sir.
Yes, excuse me, I'm Chris Vaughn. I live on 50th Avenue and had just heard and I attended the fairgrounds presentation. And I am the chairman of the Polk County Planning Commission. This is my vice chairman right here. Keeps me in line. But so as a resident of 50th Avenue, the original plans I all saw had access from 50th Avenue going westbound. Is that still in the plan?
Yeah, so the access roads will be two-way. Are you talking about
On Highway 22.
Access onto the highway?
Yeah.
So part of the project is to eliminate those left turns. One of the issues that we have out there is just that the amount of volume and traffic people find hard to make that turn and to find that appropriate gap. And so it's going to be a bit of a shift change, or I guess a mindset change, where people are going to have to go a little bit further out of their way to use the interchange, but it's going to be a lot safer. So there's trade-offs where, you know, you're not going to be able to make that right turn onto the highway, but you will be able to do it safely through the interchange.
Right, but if we're coming down 50th and we can't access westbound Highway 22, then we need to go over and take these detours.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, there are businesses and I haul equipment, you know, everyone in that area has, you know, it's AR5. So we have larger lots with tractors and trailers and RVs, and there is, of course, Dallas Glass and Storage Place and an RV dealer right there. And I believe the outer loop, there's a pretty good altitude change.
Yeah.
Which can be difficult. So I think, you know, the inner loop option looks pretty good, and not having westbound access to Highway 22. You know, we need something that we can carry bigger stuff on that's not going up and down a hill. And so my other suggestion, which is something that I heard discussed in the meeting, is to add and do a variance, I believe it is, or an exception, because the inner loop, it looks like the ODOT's acquiring the land and it runs very close to that north side roundabout. And if that new backage road could go directly into the roundabout, it just seems like a solution that would save a lot of driving and a lot of construction costs.
Yeah, that's something we're looking into. I mean, that's what the commissioner pointed out to us, you know, a couple of weeks ago. So we're doing some work, or at least studying that's a viable option. Some of the issues, I guess, with that is that it does create some property impacts. But again, we try to look at the big picture and not just, I guess, you know, if we have to take a property, we will take a property because it has a benefit for the overall project. But yeah, sometimes we don't like to connect local roads directly into interchange. Sometimes people think that it's like an on-ramp or an off-ramp. But we're going to look into it to see, because we have done it in other places where it's made sense. And this could be one of those locations that makes sense. There's something we're working in to see if it's viable.
Okay, because that, I mean, to me, when I look at your updated Dogbones inner loop, you have the exit going westbound that goes right into the turnaround area, the roundabout. So it almost looks like a modification of that.
Yeah, it would work with the northwest loop. It probably wouldn't work with the Dogbone option.
Okay. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. I do that. Thanks for your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's Jane.
Jean Sherman from Dallas. As a sometime driver going directly along 22 to Salem, it's very nerve-wracking because the people coming from 51 going towards Salem sometimes don't even look, and the merge is sometimes very hair-raising. Sometimes people on the right lane in 22 can't get over to the left lane, you know, to make the merging real easier. And it's sometimes pretty hair-raising. So is there a longer stretch for the people merging from 51 going east, or?
Yeah, so I mean, that with this project, we would, I guess, be separating that out. And then I said we wouldn't have people, I guess, turning into business, they'd be using the access road, but that, I guess, merge on-ramp would be brought up to modern standards. So it wouldn't, I don't think would have those same issues that we have now. Maybe I think we'll thought a bit about design standards and how it
Yeah,
works.
it'll be modernized, it'll be lengthened there. And, you know, the chevron right there is a big source of people slowing down to take a right turn, and kind of creates a big conflict there. And so in all of our scenarios right now, the chevron station would go away. And so it would remove that conflict so that we could have a longer ramp and make that merge much safer.
The road overall will feel, I guess, once it's built, you know, how many years it takes, but it'll feel more like a highway. It'll feel like a proper road. You know, it won't feel like, you know, how it does now with people turning all over the place. And I think that's where a lot of the police safety accidents we're seeing is because people are turning, people are going really fast, you know. it's a really wide road. When you come out of the coast from Dirks Ferry, you've got this really long stretch of road, and you know, like people go from 55 to 75 miles, they're just accelerating as fast as they can. I'm there going 55 miles and I feel people coming at the back. It just feels unsafe. And I think one of the common critiques we get is, you know, can't you just reduce the speed limit? And we could, but people aren't going to follow it. You know, people will drive the speed at which they feel is appropriate for the road setting. It feels like and looks like a highway. And so that's why people drive really fast in this location. You know, the things that make a difference is having boots on the ground, having enforcement. And one of the things that state troopers, or at least they've had an issue, is, you know, in 1980, they had, I think it was 624 troopers for the entire state. I think the population was, you know, a fraction of what it is now. Today they have 300 troopers there. You just got a less overall police presence, which makes a real difference to getting people to slow down.
Well, I'm reassured.
Yeah,
Forward to that.
it's a really challenging project. You know, it's got a lot of issues, and that's why it's taken a long time to bring to this point. And we're not shying away that it's difficult and it's going to have impacts, but yes, we're looking long term and trying to fix the problem. And that's why it looks as expansive as it is, because it is to bring that whole entire corridor up to modern standards.
Michael Schilling, Vice Chair, Planning Commission, and President, City Council, Dallas. Just a clarification help with our public. All these options are basically removing the sightline issue of the blind corner at speeds that we're seeing on that road. That is basically a blind corner. You come around where Oak Grove drives off. I would assume there's a lot of heavy grading going in, removing a lot of that hillside. So it's more, the sight lines are open way up a whole lot more, so that when you're coming around that blind corner, you actually can see the traffic coming. That's correct.
Yeah.
And I cannot express the excitement of the planning of this intersection change for both Polk County residents and the city of Dallas residents. One of my co-counselors on the city council is Carlos, who is a retired state police officer. He's performed most of the death investigations of this and is extremely passionate about this project. This is one intersection that has to be taken care of. It is a moral obligation for us as sitting here on the planning commission and as a city councilor that we get this done. I know the timeframes, it takes a long time, but I wanted you to know the emphasis that our community is putting on this project. And I appreciate the insight that you've gone through. I will echo the comment about if there's any way to get an exception to make it so those businesses along the north side on the east side of 51, north side of 22, east side of 51 could connect a little bit quicker into that intersection, that exception you were talking about. I appreciate you taking a look at that. Very strongly recommend that. I also like the inner loop on the south side layout better instead of disturbing all of the landowners. So it just makes a whole lot more sense to keep it a little bit tighter on that side. So a hodgepodge, putting the pieces together, moving around, and I appreciate you listening to our constituents.
Michael. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Landis, a resident. First of all, I appreciate all the work you've done, obviously several plans, but with this updated Northwest inner loop option really seems to make sense. I just appreciate the work you folks done along with the commissioners.
Yeah, the county is going to be part of, pushing that loop to, reducing out of direct traffic, protecting the businesses out here. So, part of the work, while it wasn't shown on any of the expressway management plans, I guess the variation of it is shown, but there's a lot of that work was due to the county pushing towards us looking at that option and reducing the out of direction travel, because this is going to have some impacts on businesses. There's going to be winners and losers. So we're trying to really take everyone's views into consideration, to provide a project which provide long-term benefits for the community and hopefully for the businesses and people in that area. Thank you for your question.
Great. Well, great work, everybody. Thanks everyone for being here and participating. And we'll talk next time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Okay, next up, that concludes regular business. We have an executive session today.
Yes, sir.
All right, with that, we will adjourn at 10:15. Thank you.